Hey, welcome to the 360 Effect with Daryl Carnley. And I'm excited today. I'm representing an organization that I helped co-found some years ago, back actually 2016. It's called the My 360 Project. And we heard through just doing a lot of missions around the world, 300 million kids in the world do not have a pair of shoes. In fact, they say close to 11 million kids die before their fifth birthday, and a lot of that is the effect of disease in their feet. So we said, hey, let's do something about it. There's a lot of great shoe organizations doing that. And we decided to join them. And we said, let's do something a little bit different with this My 360 project. Let's build the shoes. Let's source the shoes in country if we can. And let's also, help some marginalized people with a good job, good money. And so we started doing it. 2016, we launched this process, and now we're in 17 countries. We're building in Mexico and Uganda, about to expand to Zambia. But one of the things with My 360, we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3, and we're donor based. It's donor supported. And so it's important for us to be able to get our message out, to share with others in regards to being able to support this through different sorts of opportunities, and sometimes just $35 a month, which is awesome. But one of the things that's exciting me about this podcast today, the 360 Effect, is I'm going to bring on this guy. His name is Jim Carpenter, and he's with Fidelity Charitable. And we're going to talk about some unique ways you as a donor can get involved with My 360. And maybe it's just not the $35 a month, but it's some other opportunities. And we're going to be talking about some things. In fact, we're going to have this acronym called DAF. I was like, what the heck is DAF? So we're going to talk about that. You're going to, at the end of this podcast, you're going to know what DAF is. In fact, you're going to be so educated by this guy named Jim that's going to come on and he's going to talk. I mean, he's an extraordinary person. I think he's living in the West Coast somewhere, maybe. Well, Jim, just tell us everything about yourself. Welcome to the 360 Effect, and thanks for taking the time to come out and tell us all about yourself.
Thanks, Daryl. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for building this really outstanding project. Not much about me. I've been in and around the financial services business for a few years, and my wife and I are recently lucky enough to move out to coastal California and represent Fidelity Charitable out here, working with the financial and tax advice community and helping donors really get focused and maximize their philanthropy. So I have the best job in the world. Right?
Wow. It is. I mean, you're doing good. You're doing good things.
Yeah. So, well, let's just start at the top, sort of kind of who we are and what we do, and then we'll get into the weeds a little bit. So I always have to clarify that my organization is Fidelity Charitable. We are also a public charity, like the My 360 Project. We're also a public charity. We're separate from what many of your listeners might be familiar with as Fidelity Investments, right? They have accounts there or anything. That's a great organization, a for-profit organization, and we are separate from them because we're a public charity. And although we do have quite a good relationship with them, it's true. And what we've been doing since 1991, since we got started, is working on a project to make and grow the great American tradition of philanthropy by making charitable giving and charitable planning accessible, simple, and effective. And just so you know, I mean, you're in the fundraising business, your charity is growing fast, all of those things. Americans as a group are fantastically generous.
Absolutely.
Americans give more to charities than any other country in the world by miles. It's just,
that's
Americans
amazing.
Are just great. And there are more charities in the US than the rest of the world combined.
I didn't know that.
So much great work getting done here. And we're happy to try to be part of it.
That's amazing. So what's interesting for me, I didn't realize that Fidelity Charitable was a nonprofit until I was looking through the notes. That's pretty exciting. And now, are you an arm off of Fidelity? I mean, tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, we're wholly separate because we have to do that as a not-for-profit. We have our own board of directors. Sure. We do have what we call an administrative services contract. So most of the people that do the work for the charity are actually employees of Fidelity. And that enables the charity to have fixed cost. As you know, running a charity, there's nothing like having a fixed cost. So you can really focus on your mission and know what you're what's going out the door, right?
Yeah.
So there's a relationship there, but it's, we have our own directors and everything, so we're a charity. What we do, as you mentioned earlier, we focus our efforts in something called a donor advised fund.
That's the
And
DAF, right?
that's the DAF, the DAF. That's the
DAF.
tool that we use to help our clients work on their philanthropy and maximize their charitable giving. So let me just jump right in, right? You
Yeah,
want to
that's great. Tell us what DAF is, because it's funny when someone asks me, "Hey, do you have a DAF fund?" They asked me that one time. I'm like, sure.
I hope so. So a
Yeah, I
DAF,
hope we do.
well, you're at the far end. So what a donor advised fund is, it's an account at a public charity, right?
Okay.
So the donor, your people, my people, the donor makes a gift to a public charity. In this context, the charity is Fidelity Charitable rather than
Yep.
the Catholic Church or My360. So they make a gift to the charity, and that's where they take their tax deduction. They've made a gift to charity, but it goes into an account, gets invested. So there's an opportunity for the funds, they go in, they grow. There's an opportunity for them to grow over the years, over whatever period of time they sit around. And then the main job of the donor advised fund is to make grants out to
Wow.
our clients' favorite charities. The acronym, the short version for us is give, grow, and grant.
I like
And,
that. I
as an
like that.
organization, we're going to make grants to more than 100,000 different charities this year on our
Wow.
donors' advice, one of which will be the My360 project, which is in
Amen.
our database.
I love it. I like that give, grow, grant. We, as a nonprofit, we like getting grants, but we also, I think it's important for us to realize is that as people give to us, I mean, they're not obligated to give to us or anything such as that. They're giving out of the kindness of their heart to help us propagate what we're promoting, in the sense of, for us, it's shoes on children around the world. So I really enjoy this. And I think I was telling you a funny story about how I first heard about DAF. I'll keep some of the details out because my mom might watch this, but I was at a place one time and a guy asked me about that. Do I have a DAF fund? And I'm like, I felt kind of like Daffy the Duck at the moment when he said it. So I was trying to be educated, and he was kind of telling me about it. And Jim, it was wild. A couple of weeks later, our nonprofit receives a check for $1,000 from this fund, and I had no clue what it was about. And it was this gentleman. He had got a hold of his donor advisors fund, and he said, "Hey, I like what these guys are doing." And I think now we've probably received at least $5,000 in multiple. I think the largest check was a couple of thousand, but it was just out of a conversation. He loved what we were doing. And, and I don't know what fund he was with, but it really isn't a great opportunity for us. So even as people are watching this, whether they're in a nonprofit or they're at a place where they would want to come and talk with you, this is an opportunity that's amazing that a lot of people don't know about.
Right, right. Let me tell you, so you mentioned it, the great thing for charities is getting grants. But let's talk about why somebody would want to do a DAF instead of
Yeah.
just sending you guys checks, right? So, and they go back into the donors and the donors' family financial planning, essentially. So the way we'll do it in threes again. There's sort of three parts to any
Okay.
charitable gift, right? What am I giving? When am I giving it? And who's going to get it, right?
Yeah.
And in the vast majority of charitable gifts, those three things are all stuck together because they're on a check. There's a
Yeah.
date, it says $1,000, and it says My360 project.
Exactly.
Boom, and it goes in the mail, right? Those three things, they're all stuck together. That's fine. That's what most people do. Last year, Americans wrote checks for somewhere around $250 billion of charitable giving. That's what they do, right? But what the donor advised fund brings to the family of your donors and our donors' families, what it brings is the ability to break those three things into their constituent parts. And the way we like to think about it is the right asset at the right time at the right price to maximize the donor's charitable impact and charitable intent, right?
Yeah.
So it's a way to move their charitable intent and their charitable giving essentially upstream into their financial planning, into a conversation with their financial advisor and their tax people and their portfolio and stuff.
Absolutely. It sounds like it really helps create legacy as well, which is what you would want in your philanthropy as you continue in life, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it gives you, because it's an account, it's it's separate from someone's checkbook. So there's an opportunity to think about, your current charitable giving, your family's future charitable giving. Maybe you're expecting to inherit some money at some point. I mean, there's all sorts of other considerations that
Yeah,
come into this conversation separate from, do I have $1,000 in my checkbook because Dale's a good guy and I really want to support his project, right? So
absolutely.
we're trying to, what we help people do is move their philanthropy out of their wallet and onto their balance sheet, onto
Yeah.
their planning side. So let's break that down for a couple of reasons, like when people might want to do this, right? So
Okay.
break it down. So we talk about these three things: the right asset. Most people give cash, right? That's what they
Yeah.
have. They have cash in their checkbook. They write you a check. They swipe their credit card. Visa sends you some cash. You skim off 2%, and then and they get a bill, right? Most people
I think
use.
it's 3% now.
Okay, maybe yeah. Let's try to give them benefit of the doubt.
Exactly.
Um, so, but lots of people have other assets that might be more efficient. Let's talk about an investment portfolio. Let's say you're lucky enough to buy Tesla stock 5 years ago. So you put $100 down and you bought whatever that was, 5 shares of Tesla five
Okay.
years ago. Now your $100 is worth a couple $1,000s, right? So if you sell those shares, you're going to pay a bunch of money in taxes because the government likes it. You made money, you're going to pay taxes. That's how America works, right?
Yeah.
But you can give those shares directly to the charity, right? So now you can give the charity the $2,000 that only cost you $100 a few years ago. You
Yeah.
can give them the $2,000 now. The underlying taxes don't get paid, and you take a tax deduction for the $2,000, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a way to use one starting the least expensive money or the most efficient piece
Yeah.
of their total portfolio to give to us. And that way, Uncle Sam is supporting your charitable giving, not only with a tax deduction, but with foregoing what would be a taxable event if you sold the stock, right? So when we talk about using the right asset, it's it's often not cash. It's going to
Yeah.
be some sort of appreciated property or something like that. Generally, we look at somebody's investment
Absolutely.
portfolio. The second piece of that is the right time, right? Most people, and I suspect you experience this at your organization, most people do their charitable giving in the last 6 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
Oh my
December's
gosh,
big.
it's the end of the year.
Panicking.
What do we, right? And then in March, you start to look for all the receipts and try to figure out whether you're going to get a tax deduction, all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? That's the way the world works. But if you're looking at other appreciated property, like in your portfolio, there are times all through the year that might make better sense. Let's say you own, we'll use our Tesla example again. You own some Tesla stock and you have this huge, built-in profit. The stock's way up. And that guy is mouthing off again and his stock price is going down. Maybe you want to make a move with that stock in June instead of
Yeah.
waiting to the end of the year
Till December. Yeah.
till December. Or you're looking at your portfolio and you've got the heebie-jeebies about having a recession at some point in the future. So you're going to restructure or rebalance, is the industry term for your portfolio. That's often going to create a bunch of taxes. And you might do that in the middle of the year. So there's these points across someone's year that might not be in the last 6 weeks, that be a better timing to make the gift, right? So you have the right asset at the right time at the right price, which we all hope is the highest price.
The highest, exactly. We do.
The highest price. So by having a donor advised fund in the mix, it helps your clients sort of pick and choose and time that enables them, frankly, to give more, right?
Yeah.
We'll use our example. If they have this Tesla shares, if they sell it for $2,000, they're going to pay $500 in taxes. So their charitable gift, they're only going to have $1,500. And if they just give charity the $2,000 of stock, they gave $2,000.
Yeah.
They're 25% bigger gift, give or take. The math is different on everybody's tax return.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But so that's a key place. The second one, the other main thing where we talk to donors, charities, financial advisors, tax advisors, most of your donors, most people in America, actually don't get any tax benefit from their charitable giving. In the recent tax legislation from the very end of 2017, they changed the underlying standard deduction exemption stuff on the tax return, and the numbers are pretty big. So for most people who send you $1,000 and they send their church a couple $1,000, and maybe they send the cancer research organization in their town $500, they're making meaningful charitable gifts.
Yeah.
But for most people, that's not enough to get them any kind of tax benefit, right? And so a key conversation that our donors come to us, that our customers come to us, is if I'm going to give the same $5,000 or $6,000 a year to charity, to the same charities, each of the next 5 years, I'm not going to get any tax benefit in each of those years. But if I stack it all up in 1 year all at once and put it in a donor advised fund, that's a gift to the public charity. That creates a whopping tax deduction in that 1 year. And then you can spend the next 4 or 5 years doling it out, because most of your charities, what they really need is consistent. You mentioned it, consistent monthly contributions, because that's how our bills work.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, they seem to come monthly, the bills.
Yeah, like magic, except for the big ones that come quarterly.
Exactly.
Right.
Well,
so a key part of our deal is to help your donors not only make great and predictable gifts, but get some better tax benefit out of it.
Absolutely. So in the portfolio, it's not just money they invest in, but there's other things that they can roll in as assets that can be divvied out through the DAF. So stocks, but tell me some of the other things that people can do, because I know I've had some friends sell companies and just have horrific tax liabilities. Is there opportunities in that for them to maybe not have to pay as much tax legally and it still benefit a charity that they love?
You bet. So the tax code is geared up for a charitable deduction of, the large term is appreciated property. For most of us, our appreciated property is focused on just a few things: an investment portfolio, which is what we've been talking about, our house, and some other types of investments. And all of those are donatable. Cryptocurrency, prices are starting to go back up on Bitcoin. We're starting to have some more conversations around crypto, real estate gifts. And as you mentioned, and here at my firm, we do have a niche on gifts of parts of privately held companies.
Okay.
And it works just the same way as we talked about earlier, where a donor can make a gift to us of appreciated property. Let's use a company shares as an example. They make a gift to us. Before they ink any kind of deal to sell it, it's got to be a free and clear gift. They make a gift to us, and that's going to create a tax deduction for them for the value of the gift, right? So they give us, let's just do some math, and I'll use numbers that we can all do in our heads, right? Your client's going to sell their business. She's built this great niche software business. So she's going to sell it for $10 million and have, a whopping, not only a great moment for her liquidity, but a whopping tax problem, more than $2 million tax event for her. If she was charitable, let's say she's a tither, right? She could make a gift to us in advance of the transaction of 10% of the shares in the business. So now there's sort of two things at work. When she sells the business, she's not going to have a $10 million deal. She's going to have a $9 million deal because she has us as a partner. She's also going to have $1 million tax deduction up against her $9 million deal. So her taxes due has dropped precipitously. We're going to sell the shares just like we would if you gave us Tesla stock. We're going to sell the shares right into that deal and put the money in her donor advised fund that she can subsequently grant to My 360 Project, her church, her alma mater, or some charity in the future unknown because she hasn't decided yet.
Yeah.
So it goes into the right price at the right time, the right asset, separate from which of my favorite organizations am I supporting off into the future.
Absolutely.
So we do a bunch of that. I had a nice one yesterday. Donors selling a software company to a larger organization. It's a life-changing event for him, and he is quite generous and had made a substantive gift and will fund his donor advised fund probably next week.
Wow.
And he's going to have some real firepower to support some great organizations.
Well, this is just education that's so needed, and for not just My 360, but other organizations that it just benefits so greatly. I mean, that million that you're talking about, that would have normally gone to a tax, and through absolute legal opportunities and an organization like yours that can help direct it and be sure all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and it's a beautiful thing for all of us. I really appreciate this particular type of education, because I'm feeling like I'm becoming a financial guy now or something. I know what DAF is,
Careful.
It's not additive. It's not additive to diesel. Is that DEF or DAF? I forget what it is, but it's like, it's important to know these things. And that's why we have people like you. And I'm so honored to even have you on and talk about this, because as we're growing, we're just becoming, it's really more sophistication is right. It's just being, like you say, the right time, the right asset, all of those things really helps us continue to do. And I don't know if you've seen what our shoes look like. I don't know. I don't think I've sent you a pair yet, but it's the oddest little shoe, and it actually comes flat. I've got to take this apart for you because it's funny, because all this just come out of an idea, and it's, as we encourage donors to get involved, that this shoe, here's how the shoe comes. It starts flat like that. And so it ships flat, so we can ship it all over around the world, and it can pack into a suitcase. And then you just, you come in there and you pull a couple of strings, and it's like a transformer, and it just becomes a shoe. And it's very functional. And this particular shoe is made in Mexico, in Vicente Guerrero Norte. And about 90% of everything you see here was sourced in Mexico. So it's not toxic charity, as some people say, but it was right there. And then it was built by people that live in the community. Gives them a job. They get a good. And so this is why, for us, these types of things are important, because we want more people to see how they can talk with you, organizations like yourself, but proverbially you, to help us, and of course help other people as well. So this is very educational. Is there anything else to add to this?
I think we got the nuts and bolts of it for your listeners. We'd be happy to help them out, or talk to your financial advisor folks if you have one, around doing a DAF, or around just making sure that what you're doing for charity is as maximized and as effective as you want it to be. And
Yeah.
that is really the key. And for charities, let me throw this out for you, Daryl. When you get, like, you've had a few, when you get checks from donor advised funds, right? Those are great. Those are great for you. It's going to say Fidelity, or it's going to say Vanguard, or National Christian Foundation, or whatever it is. It's going to,
Yeah.
it's going to have the name of the big charity. It's going to have the name of your donor. But here's what your donor has more money in that account.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are people, that they've moved their charitable giving out of, he seems like a good guy, over to, that's an organization that I want to make sure I can continue to support.
Absolutely. That legacy funding, and I think that's what's important. And to me, I think as the world continues to spin as it is, I mean, there's so many more opportunities to help people, and this is definitely a good way to do it. It's a very smart way, legal way, and someone like yourself is very well educated, and this is what's needed. It's not just a haphazard idea. This is real stuff. This is things that are helping the world in so many ways. So. But man, Jim, I thank you for your time and coming in, and we got to do this again, and maybe we'll get a little further in the nuts and bolts of it. And maybe a nonprofit watching this wants to call you, and they want to do a podcast with you for their donors and things such as that. Are you open to that?
I'd love to. I'd be honored.
And you work for ice cream, I think, isn't it? I think that's what we're paying you.
We all do work for charities.
I love it. Well, Jim, thanks so much. And it was so nice meeting you, and I appreciate it, and have fun in California today. And if anyone wants, if you're interested in anything that we've talked about, you can get a hold of Jim. We're going to, on this podcast, we're going to put some connections. You can talk with Jim at Fidelity Charitable to help. And if it's directing toward My 360, that's great. But at least allow your money to do more than just pay taxes. I think that's something that's really important. Do something good. This weekend, I was just with a guy named Mike Freeton, and he's, in fact, his employee number at Nike is in the early 300s. That's where he started, and he's our lead designer. And Bowerman was his main mentor. He worked for Bowerman, who was the co-founder of Nike. And he said something to us at the table yesterday, or last night, actually, in Mexico. He said, one thing that Bowerman always said to his employees, but to Mike, because Mike was one of his main guys, he said, do good things. He said, do good things. He said, that's what we want to do in the world. And Mike was sharing that with our team last night in Mexico. He said, Daryl, do good things. And that's what we want to do. And to do that, we need help. We need people to step up and be a part of supporting. But wow, what a great way to do this through a donor advisors fund. So thank you for the education. And I hope that this helps people get more involved with what we're doing, but with what other organizations are doing, connecting through you.
Really glad to be on, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
All right, my friend. God bless you. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.